Bows lined up, and away we go. We see the cannon, the smoke going off. This is it, the start of Women's Division 5. What an epic race I'm sure we've got on our hands. A clean start from Pembroke, but it looks to be a fast, frantic one from Wolfson, who are chasing them down. Going with them, it looks to be pretty clean from Mansfield, but further back, it looks to be a good start from University, closing down on St Hugh's. I think that's one to watch as they get closer and closer to Donington Bridge. Going with them behind them, Linacre, Balliol look to be maintaining their gaps. Linacre look to be opting perhaps for that long game approach, seeing if they can tire out University, because University are thundering on to St Hugh's out in front of them, and the same out in front as well. What a fantastic start from Wolfson, and it looks to me like they got that bump on them. Pembroke continuing on, but Wolfson coming into the back. You can't ask for a better start than that, Phil.
Absolutely, that was. I mean, I've got to say, the quality of those starts in Women's Division 5 is spectacular. So well done to all the crews there. So yeah, Wolfson 3 have bumped out and Pembroke 2. It looks like, okay, right, Univ has stopped rowing, so it looks like Univ have probably bumped St Hugh's. St Hugh's actually making a really bright start at Mansfield, and that's a concession from Worcester. So I believe, that looks like a very interesting 3-boat sandwich, but I believe that Corpus Christi bumped Worcester, and I also believe that University bumped St Hugh's. So we've already had 3 bumps in this division. It could have been a couple more, so my prediction of just 3 bumps is probably wrong. It would be good to see camera 2 again in terms of actually, there we go, that's very close between Balliol and Linacre. That's a concession from Linacre, so Balliol have bumped Linacre. And if we can pan all the way up and zoom in at the top of camera 2, if we can try and see middle of top gut, we've probably got a very interesting race between St Hugh's and Mansfield. St Hugh's weren't really put off by being bumped by University, and they were getting pretty close to Mansfield. So maybe instead, if I hand over to Fergus, let's cut over to camera 3 at Longbridges, and if you can see those top few crews exiting the gut.
Well, there we see Pembroke. They're coming around the corner after a disappointing start. Bumped by Wolfson is the last thing they will have wanted to have happened. They will have hoped that they were going to be able to row down this course, be the sandwich crew, but no, bumped by Wolfson. Wolfson are going to be the sandwich crew. They're going up and they're going to race Women's Division 4 at 3:45 today. So disappointing row from Pembroke. And all they're going to be thinking about now is just making sure they get down the course in one piece, trying to hold off the charge from the likes of Mansfield. But Mansfield sitting a good way back, sort of at least 6-7 lengths or so back. Mansfield themselves have got to be careful, because here comes St Hugh's chasing them down, getting closer and closer every single stroke. Because what a performance it is from St Hugh's. And I think within the next 5, 6, 7 strokes or so, I think we're going to see the Caucasus arm of Wolfson go up.
Mansfield.
Mansfield.
That's okay.
There we go. Yeah, Mansfield go up. St Hugh's get the bump. They tucked in and soldier on. Go Mansfield, because they've got the rest of the course to see out.
Exactly, and you saw the Mansfield coxer looking around a little bit nervous and hesitantly, and you almost saw their arm flinch very slightly. They were about to concede and went, actually, no, I can hold on a bit longer, and then they realised, no, that bump is inevitable, so I'm going to stick up my hand, and I can stick to the course, not get involved in a messy collision, and just keep motivated. I have to say, looking at the Pembroke crew, they did have a really bright start, but I'm noticing that, as they exit the gut, that's when the tiredness sets in, that's when I think the demoralisation sets in as well. You could see them probably missing a fair bit of their catches, and you can see some of their heads lower down, and it's really important to try and keep their morale up as much as they can, because whilst Wolfson are bumped out and St Hugh's are bumped out, and there's a big distance between Mansfield and Pembroke, if in the event they do get caught by Mansfield, they're going to plummet down Women's Division 5, because all the other crews are bumped out on crews that are still racing. So I think it'd be interesting if you can kind of maybe pan back to camera 2 and see what's going on around the top gut, because it did look really interesting around Balliol, Worcester and Corpus Christi. So yeah, it looks like a bunch of these are crews that are bumped out, actually. So yeah, let's switch back to camera 3 at Longbridge, and if we can have a look on the left, heading all the way up Greenbanks to see who's still racing. Maybe if we can actually zoom out a bit more as well. So we've got Worcester there, who got bumped out by Corpus Christi W2. Worcester, I think, will be trying to chase Linacre. If we might see Linacre going into shot. Oh, that's a long distance away, and we can't actually see them behind the trees. So I suspect that Worcester will not be catching Linacre. And I think now if we change to camera 4, we'll be able to see all the way along. And actually, yeah, so we've got... Actually, that's not as big a gap as they maybe thought it would be. So we've got Linacre there, and we've got Worcester 2 behind them. Fergus, do you think there might be a bump here with what's still quite a sizable gap with still a fair bit of the course to go?
Oh, perhaps. You can see them just starting to come round out behind the bushes as well. But I think they're coming down just sort of a slightly higher rate of striking. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a close one. It could be another one of those races where it comes into the last couple of 100 meters. But I imagine as the camera pans around, I think it's probably a larger margin, I should say, than we're probably seeing at the moment. So I think Lineker should be able to hold on to this as we come in front of New College Boathouse. We've got probably about 400 meters or so left of women's Division 5. And I think if they hold it together, Lineker should be able to see this one out. But I don't know. I think it looked to me as if Worcester looked to be the more dominant, the more powerful crew coming around that corner.
Potentially, yeah. And I think the only action we have left is on camera 4. So if we switch back to camera 4 and maybe point it right, there we go, right up there to the finish. So we see Pembroke 2 at the head of this division, who got bumped by Wolfson 3. So they've got Mansfield chasing them. They're probably about 3-4 lengths. There's a crab there, isn't there?
There's a crab there. So could that be devastation there? We're going to see likely Pembroke pick it up. There we see the rate of striking is going to go up. And if Mansfield Cogs was able to sense this, they would have put a huge push in with their crew, knowing that they're almost smelling blood, an opportunity to scalp Pembroke here. But I think Pembroke managed to recover just about in time. We can see the finish line just coming up on the left-hand side. So Pembroke just avoiding sort of a disaster there. We were talking about the margin they had earlier on in the course. But it goes to show anything can happen in these races. And yeah, I think Pembroke just managing to survive that scare in the last sort of 50, 60 meters or so. Obviously, they were bumped earlier on by Wolfson, Mansfield coming across there. And almost disaster there, Phil, for Pembroke.
Yeah, and I've got to say, showing my age now, but I've had various different bits of fond history of summer 8s or summer torpids with Pembroke and crabs. So one of the messiest appeals I had to deal with was actually 10 years ago almost today, when it was Saturday of summer 8s, and it was Pembroke W1 who were second on the river. They were gaining very rapidly on Balliol W1 who were ahead of the river. They got to within an inch and then they crabbed and they missed out on the bump. And then about a minute and a half later, Pembroke crabbed again, and they almost got caught by Wadham. The strokes blade of Pembroke was a centimetre away from the bow of Wadham,